Tonight you will pick up your phone without deciding to. You will not remember doing it. Your thumb will just move. You will unlock the screen, glance at nothing in particular, and put it back down. Then you will do it again in 10 minutes. It feels like a bad habit. It feels like weakness. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain is not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do in an environment it was never designed for. Go back 100,000 years. You are standing in tall grass. The wind moves the blades in a pattern you do not recognize. Is it wind? Or is it something crouched low watching you? You cannot know without checking. And checking, even when it turns out to be nothing, keeps you alive. So your brain evolved a simple rule. When something is uncertain, look again. Never fully stop looking. The cost of checking is small. The cost of not checking, even once, could be your life. This rule did not disappear when you moved into houses and cities. It is still running in your skull right now. Your phone has simply become the tall grass. Here's where the story gets specific. In the 1950s, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner ran a series of experiments with pigeons and levers. He noticed something odd. Pigeons that received a reward every single time they pressed a lever eventually pressed it less. But pigeons that received a reward only sometimes on no fixed schedule pressed the lever compulsively. They could not stop. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it turned out to be one of the most powerful behavioral patterns ever documented. Translate that into plain English. A reward you always get becomes boring. A reward you might get becomes addictive. Now think about your phone. Every time you unlock it, you do not know what you will find. Maybe a message, maybe nothing, maybe a photo that makes you laugh, maybe silence. You are not checking because you know something good is there. You're checking because you do not know. That uncertainty is the entire mechanism. It is Skinner's pigeon lever, rebuilt in glass and aluminum and placed in your pocket. But why does uncertainty feel so magnetic in the first place? For that, you need to look inside the brain itself. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz was studying dopamine, the brain chemical everyone associates with pleasure. What he found was more surprising than pleasure. Dopamine did not spike when a monkey received a reward it expected. It spiked when the reward was uncertain, and even more sharply when the reward arrived unexpectedly. Dopamine, it turned out, was not a pleasure signal at all. It was a prediction signal. It fired hardest at the gap between what you expected and what actually happened. This means your brain is not chasing rewards, it is chasing surprise. Every notification is a tiny gap between expectation and outcome. You do not know what it says until you look. That gap is where dopamine lives. And your brain, the same brain that once scanned tall grass for danger, now scans a screen for the same electric uncertainty. There is a second researcher who makes this even clearer. Kent Berridge, a psychologist who spent decades studying the difference between wanting and liking, found that these are two separate systems in the brain. You can want something intensely without actually liking it once you have it. Think about that for a second. Have you ever checked your phone, found nothing interesting, felt a small flicker of disappointment, and then checked it again 5 minutes later anyway? That is wanting without liking. That is the mechanism Berridge described, playing out in your hand dozens of times a day. So here is what is actually happening when you feel that pull. Your ancestors evolved to scan their environment constantly for anything unexpected because unexpected things in the wild were often dangerous and sometimes valuable. Food, predators, rival tribes, weather changing. The brain that checked more survived more. Your dopamine system evolved to reward that scanning, not with pleasure exactly, but with a sharp little jolt whenever something surprising showed up. Not when you got what you expected. When you got something you did not expect. And your phone, without anyone designing it maliciously, ended up perfectly shaped to trigger both systems at once. Constant uncertainty, constant small surprises, a reward schedule so irregular it would make Skinner's pigeons look calm by comparison. You're not weak for checking it. You are exactly as evolved as every human who has ever lived. The environment just changed faster than your brain could. Here is the part that makes this stranger still. In the ancestral environment, checking had a natural limit. There was only so much tall grass, only so many directions to look. Eventually, you ran out of things to scan, and your attention would settle because the environment itself was finite. Your phone is not finite. There is always another scroll, always another tab, always another thread. You have built an environment that never runs out of tall grass and handed it to a brain that has no natural stopping point built in because it never needed one before. Think about the last time you told yourself you would check your phone for just a minute. Did you notice how much time actually passed? Most people do not, and that is not an accident either. The same uncertainty that pulls your attention in also makes it very hard to notice how long you have been looking. There is no natural signal in your body that says stop, because your body was never built to encounter an infinite field of maybe. This is not a story about willpower, it is a story about mismatch. A rule that kept your ancestors alive in the grasslands is now running on a device built by engineers who, whether they intended to or not, discovered the exact same psychological principles Skinner and Schultz had already mapped out decades earlier. So what do you do with this? You cannot delete the instinct. It is not a flaw to be fixed. It is the same instinct that let your ancestors notice a predator half a second before it noticed them. What you can change is the environment. Skinner's pigeons could not remove the lever from the cage. You can remove the cage from your pocket, even for an hour. You can turn a screen face down. You can put a boundary between yourself and the infinite field of maybe. Because the grass will never stop moving. The wind was never the danger. The danger was assuming you had to look every single time. And tonight, when you feel your hand move towards your phone without deciding to, you will know something your ancestors never got the chance to know. You will know exactly why.